a pleasure to come down to what I consider to be the city of perpetual spring, San Diego. I lived down here for 3 years, many years ago, and I did discrimination investigations for Kaiser at the time. I think I probably told this story many times. And San Diego had the most sexual harassment complaints of all the facilities. But I'm going, perpetual spring. That's where people are. So, disclaimer before I start, because there was this rather important discussion that took place between the four of us before we started. So, just to let you know that I chose this koan before we had that discussion, even though this is going to sound like it came out of the discussion. It didn't happen. I just happened to be thinking about this for completely other reasons, but didn't want anyone to think that I just suddenly ran in and chose this koan as a result of that talk, and that is not the case. It's purely accidental that this koan is here. This is case 16, out of the gateless gate, the sound of the bell, and the 7-panel robe. And the case reads, Unman said, the world is vast and wide like this. Why do we put on our 7-panel robe at the sound of the bell? So the verse that goes with this koan is very interesting to me. With realization, all things are of one family. Without realization, everything is separate and different. Without realization, all things are of one family. With realization, everything is separate and different. Which reminds me of a quote from those of you who know who Alan Watts is. He's one of my favorite. It's because of Alan Watts that I started practice. So I read a lot of him before I came to practice. In one of his books, he said, if you understand, things are just as they are. If you don't understand, things are just as they are. So, this practice, we tend to be a little Pavlovian in this practice, if you will. There are things that are done at certain times when certain bells are rung. And this is all about the forms that we use in this practice as a way of really holding the container of the practice. And there's a quote, I won't try to say this in Japanese, but the English translation of this quote is, the heart seeks form, and form advances the heart. And I think it's our natural human condition to create forms, our ways of doing things, so that we can move together as community. So we know that when we come up to a signal light, there are certain things that we do that are acceptable when the light is green, and other things we do that are acceptable when the light is red. I don't know about that yellow light. That's they stuck that in the middle for because some people that means you slow down and you're cautious. Other things mean you speed up to try to get through the light. The point being is that in order for us to drive down the street and arrive hopefully safely, there are certain things that we have to do. Those are forms. So at a Zen center, we've come up with, and it's been created, it's been evolved over several, a couple thousand years, but now we've inherited a lot of these forms that are considered traditional for the practice. We place our hands in gasho, we bow at certain times, we wear certain clothes, and there are signals, because a lot of our practice is in silence. There are signals that tell us when that is supposed to happen so that we don't have to talk to each other, so that we can remain in this meditative state for the time that we're here. This meditative state is just a place to form the foundation. It is not where the practice is. The practice is what you do with that foundation when you leave here, in your everyday life. How is it manifesting in your work, in your play, with your family, with your friends? That's where the practice is. I mean, the smallest part of the Buddhist realization was him sitting under the Bodhi tree and then seeing the morning star. The rest of that that realization, that enlightenment, was him getting up off of his ass and going to teach for the next 40 years. So he went out and he did the work. That's enlightenment, is how it shows up in the world. Um, Not the sitting. The sitting is where it started because he had been through years of ascetic practices and had mastered all of the other religions that were available at the time, and he was not satisfied with what that gave him. So his decision, I'm going to sit here until I find what I need. I find what's true. I find my true self. I realize what my true self is. And he did that. And once he did it, that work was done. And the next step was, how can I help other people come to their realization of their true self? So in all this oneness, um, everyone shows up differently. There's no two of us that are exactly alike. But we are all one, all interconnected. But that does not mean sameness at all. So we are all unique in that sense. So ultimately, we know, on a very intimate level, that all of these forms, all of these clothes, all of these signals and signs and bells have no intrinsic meaning. They do have intrinsic impact, meaning that there's cause and there's always cause and effect that's attached to everything that we do. So, but they're meaningless. The meaning that we think things have is meaning that gets applied after the fact. So it's always late to the game. Um, and sometimes that meaning is helpful, sometimes it's not. Um, and you're always free to change that meaning. That's how arbitrary that meaning is. So if what usually happens, and this happens everywhere, it's not just here. Um, the the forms occur, people see the forms, and resistance comes up, and it's usually like, why? What is all this? You know, um, I can remember when I was taking the class before I took Jukai, and I was reading through some of those precepts, and I'm thinking, can I do like 9 of these? Can I get a pass on one of them? Because I don't think I could do this. So, but the form is, you take a vow to keep all the precepts, to practice the precepts, to live the precepts. Um, and if there's something coming up, some form of resistance coming up, some projection of meaning onto part of what you're doing, take a look at that. Take a really good look at where that is coming from. Um, Usually based in some traumatic experience we've had in the past. I was certainly raised in an environment where I was expected to conform, you know, be good, look a certain way, act a certain way, speak a certain way, and that's nothing less was acceptable. And so I was disciplined in that, and much of it I didn't like. So I became the black sheep of the family and rebelled against everything I possibly could, and that was fun for a while. Um, so it was rather shocking, even for me, that I came to a practice that was even more formal than the religion I was raised in. I'd look at that and I'm like, what? What was I thinking? And here I am, um, putting on this 7 panel robe at the sound of the bell. But I know this 7 panel robe, which is covering this rather long, ninth century Tang Dynasty robe, which is covering the traditional Japanese kimono, covering the American undershirt and underwear, all of it meaningless, absolutely meaningless. But it provides the container in which this practice occurs, which is the only thing that's important to me. Is that the vow I've taken as a Buddhist practitioner to save all sentient beings, as a priest to take care of the temple, to make sure that people have some place to come where they can sit and reflect and focus and be the teachers that they need to be, because teachers don't teach you anything. They provide you the space for you to teach yourselves. That's our job. We have no answers for you because you already have them. You already have your enlightenment. You already have your true selves. That cannot be either given or taken away from you. Uh, but it does take work to realize that, because certainly we are taught um, all the ways that are acceptable in our culture, in our society, and a lot of that gets in the way. Um, some of it is useful. So it's useful most of the time to stop at a red light. It's a good form to abide by. But there are times, hopefully they're rare, when it might be dangerous for you to stop at that red light, and to be able to recognize that that red light is meaningless. It's a form that provides for traffic control, but there are times when that traffic needs to be controlled in a different way, and to break that rule. So when we study the precepts, we study it from that point of view. Like, yeah, the good rules, probably not a good idea to kill. However, there's no getting out of killing either, because even if you're a vegetarian, the plant dies in order for you to live. So that killing has, the not killing has its limitations, and there are times that you can go through all the precepts and discern the times when it might be appropriate to break that precept. Um, Certainly not the first place you go, but it is a place that's available. You are absolutely free to do anything that you want, and karma is always attached. So there will be an impact with everything that you do. And important to take care of that impact, because that's what's important. But the forms are a wonderful practice place to really look and to pay attention to. Um, why do I not want to do Gasho today? Why do I not want to bow? Why do I not want to chant this chant again? What does these nonsensical, Japanese Sanskrit words actually mean? Um, how is this helping me? How is this not helping me? Question it. Look at it. Look at it from your point of view. Do not ignore all of these questions that come up. Um, there's nothing in this practice that says don't question. As a matter of fact, we say just the opposite. Question everything. Be present with those questions, but also understand that it's your job to find the answers. It's not someone else's job to give you those answers, because someone else's answers are someone else's answers. They're not yours. So be your own truth. Do your own work. And that your own work is interconnected with the work that everyone else in the universe is doing. You're not alone, and you are alone in many respects. So both of those are true. This is what makes this practice very special and very difficult, um, and probably why there aren't thousands of people doing it, because it's hard. Um, there is no certainty on which to hang your hat in this practice. There's only the question. There's only moving in and treating each and every situation in its own unique way. Um, and this practice gives you the space to really be open to that, to be present with that, and to make those discerning decisions about how to help this situation in the way that is best for that situation, not according to some pattern or instruction that I've learned in the past, but be very present and be completely free to make a decision about that may be new, may be different, maybe not be what the instruction book said. Um, but the important thing is, how am I taking care of myself, and how am I taking care of the situation? How am I taking care of the person, the people, the group, the environment that is right there in front of me? That's what's here now. Um, those rules, yeah, maybe they're helpful, um, but maybe not. And you have the freedom to not apply the old rules to a new situation because it may not work. You're also free to make mistakes and then fix it because we all do that. More important how you recover from a mistake than it is about trying to not make mistakes. So dive in, make those mistakes. Um, you know, got show wrong, chant wrong, bow wrong, and then take care of it and fix it. That's what this practice is all about. It's not about this. We use the term perfect a lot in this practice. You're perfect, whole, and complete, just as you are. And what does that mean? I know Suzuki Roshi was famous for saying, you're perfect just as you are, and you can use a little work. As we all can. There's always work to do because you're new every single day, every single minute. Um, and the current experiences are changing you, are teaching you. So be present with those experiences, with who they are. And be be willing, hard though this may be, to hold those ambiguities, because both sides of those equations are true. Just as the verse says, with realization, all things are of one family. Without realization, all things are of one family. With realization, everything is separate and different. Without realization, everything is separate and different. Things are just as they are, and take care of them in your own unique way. Um, so the so-called hierarchy or authority figures that we have in this practice are or should be, inverted. The I tell people who are, you know, getting ready for Jikai, that they're getting ready for their first demotion in Zen, and any step above that is a further demotion because the expectation is that you're even more of service and you're working to get more and more out of your own way as well as out of the way of everyone else, and just provide the space, the container for people to come to their own realization because no one can do that for you. You have to do that work yourself. And that's why you're here. That's why you keep coming back. That's why you've taken these vows, even if you haven't officially taken your Jikai. You're willing to chant the four Bodhisattva vows at the end of these sessions every single time. So you leave here uh, having made an impossible promise to save all sentient beings, um, and the and everything that goes with that. Um, Impossible to do. And what are you saving them from exactly? If they're perfect, whole, and complete already, what's there to save? Um, an important question, and that needs to be asked in every situation, because sometimes the best option for resolving a problem is to do nothing and to know that that option is there and available to you as one way of resolving the problems. When I'm now lucky enough to be retired, but oftentimes I worked in human resources for years, and I worked on the dark side of HR, meaning when people were coming to see me, they were on their way out the door. So the recruiters who had the happy part of HR, they brought them in, and my part of HR, we took them out. But usually come in, I would get a lot of visits from managers who were bringing their issues about their employees, and they would just sit in my office and go, I need your advice. I've got all these problems coming in, and I said, well, tell me what's going on. And they would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And then by the end of their soliloquy, because I contributed nothing to that conversation, they had resolved their own problem. And they're like all grateful to me. And I'm like, okay, I did nothing here. You just needed somebody to talk to, and that's what I can be. I can sit here and just be present with you while you resolve your own problems and teach yourself the lessons that you need to learn. Because that's the only person that can teach you is you. The only person that can resolve the problem is you. And people at night, first, a lot of managers would say to me, you have such a hard job. You have to listen to all these people complain. I would say, oh no, I don't have to live with these people. I send them back to you to take care of. The managers who had to take care of those people, they had the hard work. Um, so it was not that difficult for me. But I did was able to provide space, and it was really part of out of this practice that it wasn't important for me to have all the answers. I just had to be present, and where I could help, great. But a lot of times, the best thing I could do was shut up and just be present, just listen, let them figure it out for themselves. Is that ultimately, no matter what I say, they're the ones that have to carry it back to whatever it is they're doing, and better that it comes from them because they know how they know who said it, they know the source of it, and they're not blaming me if it doesn't work. So, and sometimes they take my I would give advice, they take my advice, and then it didn't work, and they did blame me. So I'd have to, you know, take care of that. An important part of the recovery. But these forms, they exist in your everyday life. Your alarm goes off. You probably get out of bed with the same foot every day. You put your your, your pants on, with the same foot the same way. You brush your teeth with your same hand in the same way, probably around the same time. I know I can trace my exact routine because the first thing that has to be taken care of are the cats who are meowing at me. So they must be fed first before coffee. So cats, coffee, then I can start thinking. So that routine is those are my morning forms. That's the that's what happens with when the alarm goes off, when the bell rings. That's the 7 panel robe that I put on when I get up in the morning. So the 7 panel robe is just a metaphor. Um, does it have to look like you know this robe or any other robe or a waksu, or does it have to look like anything at all? No, it doesn't. Um, these symbols, if you will, are in and of themselves meaningless. They carry a certain signal to people when they come to a Zen center, that this is a place where these things happen. Um, and some people will attribute good things to that signal, and other people will be very reactionary. It can be a touchy point if people have been traumatized by religious practice in the past. That's going to make you know anybody who's wearing those symbols somewhat suspect. Um, so that's what they bring to you as a person who's wearing those symbols. So how are you going to take care of them in that case when they don't trust you because you're a practitioner of a particular practice because you abide by certain forms? Um, so not everyone will have a positive story about those forms. Um, and it's important to be present with both sides of those occasions. I think we do this practice because we think it's a good thing, and hopefully it is. Um, but does it have that impact on everyone that you encounter? And the answer is going to be no, because you're going to encounter any number of people who have different reactions and different sensitivities and different past lives, different traumas. They're going to have their own reaction to that, and you stepping back and getting out of your own way allows you to be present with whatever that reaction is, and to address it honestly. So doing the forms is is one thing. Putting the 7 panel robe on when the bell rings is one thing. If that means that you're putting on some kind of egotistical, you know, you know, you know, mantra that you are all that because you're putting on this robe, therein lies the suffering. Because this meaningless means nothing. What you do with it, what you do with the practice, where how with where how the rubber hits the road in real life, in real encounters, in real interactions, that's where the practice is. That's where the enlightenment is. That's what's more important. So it doesn't matter what you're wearing. Um, it doesn't matter, you know, how you wear it. I mean, if you're having, you know, a bad Roxy day. That's important to pay attention to. And this enlightenment is exactly what it says. Shed a light. Look at your own forms. How are they functioning in your life? How are they operating in your relationships, in your interactions, in your everyday exchanges with with people and the environment? Um, and that's important to look at. If you could step out of the story, step out of your own story about these forms and really be honest about how they're impacting you and everyone around you. Um, that is a level of awareness most people don't have. So it gives you that plus because people are very stuck in you must do it this way, preferably mine. I know I get that way on the freeway. It's like I admit I do not drive the speed limits and do not appreciate people who do. So, because I'm a very bad Buddhist, it is not about the journey, it's about getting there. So, and now I can laugh at it, but before, serious road rage coming up. So, and now when it comes, it's like, there it is. I think I own the whole road, and everyone needs to be driving the way I want them to be. Um, and that has never been the case and never will be, and I need to slow down. um, so the other we did. Have you guys done Fusatsu renewal of the vows? Did you guys do that here? Okay. So we did our ceremony Yukoji this past Friday. Small group because we're in interim period, and there were only four of us, and three of the four of us picked the same precept for the day to pick on, and what the precept was talking about others' errors and faults. And out of my work on that, I came up. I've created a new precept. So this is the 11th precept that I'm going to add to the lexicon, and that is refrain from being attached to stories. So who knows whether or not I thought, well, maybe that's related to don't tell lies, refrain from lying. But sometimes the stories are not lies, they're not untrue, but they're still stories that get applied after the fact, and they're from the past, so they're not present. They're not what's happening here and now. So if you're attached to a story, a way of being, a way of seeing things that is dictated by strictly what's happened in the past, you're missing the present. You're missing an opportunity to really do something different and new and unique, and something that could be very helpful to in ending suffering in that particular situation. Not that the past is bad. Sometimes it's a good place, a good source of information, but question it um, before you apply that. Is that valid here? Does that work in this situation? I'm present here now. Um, I'm projecting a story onto the situation that comes from a different situation, a different time, a different place. Is that really what I need to do here? Um, and that questioning is the most important part of that, which is what the sitting does. It gives you the space to question and to weigh those options. Not that you should be stuck in your head, because the best way to be present is to not be stuck in your head and just focus on your breathing, your koan, your shikantaza, just do the meditation. And that space by itself, just by the nature of the sitting itself, opens up. It's there, it's present, and it works. Um, so it gives you the opportunity and the space in your mind to realize that you don't have to immediately respond all the time. There may be some urgent situations that require that you do that. But then you can trust your true self when those emergent situations come up. Your entire body knows that if a ball bounces out in front of your car, um, your body is going to slam on the brakes before your mind has a chance to register, because there's going to be a child, a dog, a person who's going to be chasing that ball. So it's an automatic response. You see somebody, 25 feet away, hit their finger with a hammer, you go, even though that hammer was nowhere near you. Your body knows. You can trust that. You can trust that you are connected to everything and everyone else, and respond empathetically, because the empathy is there. It's already there. It's already built in. It's already be present because we are inextricably interconnected with anything, with everything and everybody else. So trust that connection. Trust that you came to this practice because you sensed that connection and you wanted to be present with that connection. So you're doing that work. You're here. And notice the thousands of people who are not here. They're not doing that work. They may be doing the work in another venue, but for the most part, a lot of people just don't do the work. It's easier to comply, or easier to rebel, easier to do just what the gut says instead of really taking that into consideration. So thank you for doing the work. Um, and there's more work. There's no end to the work. Um, so keep, as it is at AA, keep coming back. I think that's, like everyone says. So keep coming back to this cushion, to your foundation, to that which gives you the roots of this practice, that which you need to really take care of yourselves and take care of the world, people, the environment around you all day. And yes, at times the bell will ring and it'll be time to gasho, time to put on your ruaksu, time to put on the 7 pound robe. Other times that bell may ring and it may be time to question what that bell means and decide whether or not what you usually do is the appropriate response, or is there another response that would be better to end the suffering that is present in that moment. So both the bell and the robes and the signals and the forms, all meaningless, all empty, but important to pay attention to, and they're also helpful. It's we do things out of habit because that's the least resistant thing to do. I don't resist the cats when they beg for food. They want food. I feed them. Um, and for the most part, there are lots of other habit energy that goes into forming the rest of my day. Um, but there are other opportunities that present themselves where I can do something different, and pay attention to what's present in front of me. Pay attention to what people need, and sometimes of the myriad options that present themselves, um, sometimes it's better just to do nothing. That is an option that we have. All right, enough of the bell. Questions, discussions, disagreements, dissension, all of it is invited.